All right, then, moving on. Question number 2 comes in from John. Hi there, John. Thank you for your question and for being part of the amazing WiggyWam community. So John says, our property was valued at 210,000 last year, and we accepted an offer for 190,000. Given the time lapse since then, we are concerned that the buyer's surveyor will undervalue it for the lender. He is coming over tomorrow. If he does value it lower, where do we stand if the offer has already been accepted? Okay, John, well, that's a great question, and I appreciate your concern. There's been a lot of conflicting opinions floating around, I've noticed, in the media and also on social media about what's happening with the market, whether it's going up, down, sideways, what's actually happening. Obviously, we've got the cost of living crisis to factor into all of this, and a lot of people are suggesting that, mortgage rates have increased, but then they're also now coming back down, so the market should continue to be buoyant. But I think what's mainly being overlooked here is the impact in terms of cost of living and the overall increase in people's expenditure on heat, light, and power, which I think has been substantial and will be continue to erode people's purchasing power for some time. Also makes people nervous. When you've got uncertainty in the marketplace, that's one of the driving factors, that if confidence is lower, then obviously, the housing market can begin to slow down. But to get into the meat of your question, John, the first point to say here is that value is subjective, okay? And it's usually backed up. So any value of a property is usually backed up by what's known as comparable evidence. All right. And what comparable evidence is that when the valuation surveyor turns up at your property, like he or she is going to do tomorrow, okay, they'll come around, they'll inspect the property, they'll look for any obvious signs of defects within the property, and then they'll usually leave. And what will happen, as used to happen in my days when I was an estate agent, they'll get on the phone, okay, and the surveyor will call usually 2 or 3 local estate agents, and they will ask if they've sold other properties in the area of a similar size accommodation, similar condition, okay, and what those properties have actually sold for. Now, this is not what they've sold subject to contract for, which is when the sign goes on the board and it says sold subject to contract, or reserved, or whatever else might be on the board, but actually what they completed at, which means when they've completed, that usually those properties that have sold and completed have had another valuation surveyor look at them. They put a valuation on the property that's been backed up by the bank, who's happy to commit to that level of exposure on that property, and then the sale's completed, which means the surveyor has a lot more confidence and reliance that actually that's the value of that property. Now, if I give you a simple example, John, imagine you've got 4 terraced houses, okay, and the first property sold for 100,000, the second property sold for 92,500, the third property sold for 97,500, and I ask you what's the fourth property worth, you're gonna say roughly 95 to 100,000, okay? That's how comparable evidence works. And in your situation, hopefully what your own estate agent should be able to do, or you can do on their behalf, is to go around and talk to estate agents, or gather together at least 3 comparables of properties that have ideally sold within the last 3 months in your local area that are of a similar type of accommodation and condition. Okay, and if you can do that and put it in front of the surveyor's nose tomorrow, great, because you're doing a large part of his job for him, which he's going to find, or she's going to find, really helpful. Okay, that would be what I would be doing, and we used to do this a lot as property investors. When we knew that the valuation surveyor was turning up at the property, we'd also be there, and we'd provide at least 3 comparables of properties that have sold in the area at a similar price and condition. You can get this information online. It is available online. You can go on sites like, I think it's Mouse Price or something of that ilk. The slight issue is that a lot of this data comes from land registry, and with land registry delays with getting titles complete and deals complete on land registry, a lot of that information on prices has been delayed by several months, so it's outside the 3-month window usually that valuation surveyors look for when it comes to comparable evidence. Okay, so that would be the first step I would take, is to gather that comparable evidence, put it in front of the surveyor. If you can't do it, if it's too short notice, then just be aware that they're likely to do it once they leave your property, once they've completed the inspection. So if you can rally around with your estate agent and provide that information to them before they go, or within the next sort of 24 hours, that will help them complete their valuation report. Okay, so that's a really, really good place to start. The second thing I will say is, if the surveyor downvalues the property, the next question is, by how much? Okay, now it might be there could be a number of different scenarios. Let's say, for example, the surveyor says there's an issue with the chimney breast that they've noticed, and they can see the chimney stack outside the roof of the property probably needs £2,000 worth of work doing to it in their estimate. Okay, now they may apply a retention on the mortgage by £5,000, for example, until that work is completed. Now, that's not necessarily a down valuation, but it is an obstacle to overcome that's going to require the input of your estate agent to help you navigate those choppy waters of either you getting the work done and proving that it's all done, and sending, making sure the surveyor is satisfied so that they will relieve the retention from the mortgage, so that the buyer can get the full amount of mortgage in place and then complete the purchase. Or you've got to then capitulate on the price and either drop by £2,500 to cover the work and the cost and inconvenience of doing it, or you've got to come to some kind of other arrangement where, if the price has been downvalued by a couple of grand, then your estate agent, if they're good at negotiating, which they should be because they're an estate agent, they might look at doing this from a point of view of, can we throw in something else with the property deal to make it a little bit more sweeter? Like, well, actually, they're going to leave the carpets and the curtains, or there's a hot tub in the garden that's worth £3 or £4 grand. You can have that as part of the deal as long as you stick to that price. Okay. Now, the third scenario might be that actually the surveyor comes along and they completely downvalue the property, either because they don't know what they're doing, because they're incompetent, which does happen. I've had that happen to me on an occasion. I'll share that story with you. It was absolutely devastating. It was a guy that I'd met after I'd become qualified as a building surveyor. I went back into agency for a period of time, and I was helping them set up their conveyancing department. Sorry, their survey department before the credit crunch actually happened. And then as I left that company, I've been working with this particular surveyor to try and establish that surveying department, which didn't actually happen. And this surveyor then came and looked at a building that I'd bought several years later, and it was over a 3,000 square foot of office accommodation that we converted into flats and bedsits as a HMO, with office accommodation downstairs. Round numbers, I'd bought the building for about 160,000. I'd spent over 100 on it converting it. In anybody's book, it was easily worth 300 to 350,000 at least. Okay, and this surveyor, who was full of the green-eyed monster, came round, and after me spending £5,000 for his valuation report, okay, he valued the building at 165,000. Okay, absolute incompetence, but not just incompetence. It was, I believe, he did it as some kind of, whatever it was, jealousy or some other nonsense that he'd got going through his mind at the time. But in that position, I couldn't actually do anything, because he'd completely sabotaged the mortgage application through, I think it was Aldermore at the time, or whatever it was. He'd completely sabotaged that application, because I could never go back to Aldermore and say, by the way, the surveyor's incompetent. He's undervalued the building by probably the best part of £150,000. Okay. I just couldn't do that, because it just puts everything into a state of, well, why is he valued it at this price, right? So it then cost me another, I think it was £3,000 or £4,000 to get another surveyor in place, who was an absolute gentleman, who came around and looked at the building, was like, I can see exactly where you're at. It's easily worth 350 to 360, and gave him that valuation. And those two surveyors' visits were within about 2 weeks of each other. Okay, so nothing drastically had changed on site, but you can see the clear, utter incompetence of this one surveyor, who obviously had some kind of personal vendetta against me, or whatever else it might be. So the point of telling you that story is, obviously, if it's a massive down valuation, it's kind of the nuclear option, if you like, and the deal is probably likely to fall apart unless your buyer can go to another provider and actually get a new mortgage product and then get another surveyor to come around and look at the property. It is unfortunately very difficult, challenging competence of a surveyor when it comes to them working alongside their mortgage companies. So if it's a massive down valuation, then you've either got to say, is it fair and reasonable, which is unlikely to be, based on the fact that you know we're not talking millions of pounds here. So it would be a case of you would need to potentially find another buyer, or your buyer would have to go to another mortgage provider and then try and get another mortgage product in place in order to allow their deal to go through as quickly as possible. So hope that helps. In terms of your situation, John, I wouldn't be too worried about it. Hopefully it'll be a non-entity. I can understand the nerves because you're selling a property, you've invested time, effort and money. You don't want to lose your buyer, but I would just sit tight with it. Hopefully it'll all go plain sailing, and if you can provide that comparable evidence with your estate agent, that's going to massively help you to make sure this all goes through as quickly as possible. All right. So good luck. Let us know if we can help at all, John, with anything else. And as I say, good luck with it all, and may it all work out in your favor. All right. Thanks for the question. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've got to the end of today's webinar. I've been really passionate about getting through some of these questions there. You've asked some fantastic questions, which I really, really appreciate you all contributing to this valuable knowledge bank and resource that we're building now within WiggyWam. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to get value out of watching these videos in the future, and also going through these questions. So thank you so much for contributing. As I say, we're here every week doing this week in, week out. So please do share this information with other people in your network. Please share these videos on your social media platforms, etc. And also feel free to submit your questions to us. You can send them in via email, happytohelp@wiggywam.co.uk. That's happytohelp@wiggywam.co.uk. You can also send them through to us on Twitter. Twitter handle is @WiggyWam_UK. So that's @WiggyWam_UK. Or you can go to our website, which is wiggywam.co.uk, and you can register your profile on there, send questions to us in a direct message, or post them onto our forum, and we'll take them in and we'll answer them each and every week. So thank you once again for watching. Thank you for being part of the amazing WiggyWam community. I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for pledging your allegiance to the property revolution, and I look forward to welcoming you on and seeing you on another webinar again in the near future. So thanks once again. Look after yourselves. God bless, and see you very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.